cannot do it alone either. Climate finance needs to reach the local level to fund a climate revolution in cities. Cities also need the technical and human resources and access to innovation and technology to make this happen. Above all, climate solutions at the local level need to reach those that need the most support. Above all, the urban poor. To achieve this, we cannot underestimate the power of collaboration. Collaboration between different levels of governance, but also with financing institutions, the private sector, and the academia, and the communities, and the NGO, and not forgetting the youth and the women's group. That is why I am very encouraged to see that here at COP28, cities are being put at the center of attention. So we can create these convening spaces for collaboration of fast-track action. Today, we will have the opening of the local Climate Action Summit, the first of its kind summit in recognition of the critical role local leaders play in supercharging national efforts to move further and faster on climate progress. Supercharging, turbocharge. I have been honored to be a co-chair of the multi-level climate action leadership group. Conversation from the local climate action summit emphasizing the importance of global recognition of four cities sub-national climate plan will inform the ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate change, as what my friend said just now, that highlights the needs to align local and national strategies and unlock climate finance for local climate action. The ministerial meeting hosted by the COP28 presidency, UN Habitat and UN Climate Change High-Level Champion, and for the first time, co-convened by 8 national governments, will bring together 40 plus ministers of housing, urban development, environmental and finance, in addition to local and regional leaders, financial institutions, and relevant non-government stakeholders. All these conversations will converge and continue right here. Our multi-level action and urbanization pavilion at COP28 is a platform where local and national actors, along with diverse partners, will come together to showcase achievement, discuss challenges, and make commitment to shape our urban future. Not only commitment, not only resolution, not only action, but I think action has to start now. I think this is very, very important. I invite all of you to join us for this event this week. Excellencies, ministers, and mayors, your discussion today and during COP28, you hold the power to shape the outcome of this COP. Please use this power of negotiation. Use your voice effectively. Use your voice wisely. And thank you all for your dedications, your unwavering commitment to sustainable cities. And together, we can build brighter, greener, and more resilient urban future for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mamouna Sharif, Executive Director of UN Habitat and Pavilion Co-Convener. Thank you very much, Mamouna, for your strong messages and encouragement to our local and regional leaders here, as well as ministers and excellencies. Thank you so much, Mamouna. I would now like to give the floor to Madam Catherine Jamé, Mayor of Malmö in Sweden and ICLEI's first Vice President, Pavilion Co-Convener.
Thank you. Esteemed guests, dear partners, dear colleagues. In 2015, UN Special Envoy Michael Bloomberg and the Mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, hosted the climate summit for local leaders on the sidelines of COP21. I was there together with hundreds of mayors. I know some of you were there, and we came from all over the world. I remember the vibrant energy. Just a few days before the historic Paris Agreement, we, the local leaders, were all very committed. With or without an agreement, we said, we are prepared to get the work done. Since then, we had the agreement, a lot have happened, but still far away from enough. And now we are here again at this year's COP, motivated to work together for the better of our inhabitants, for the future of our children and our grandchildren, and for the globe. My name is Katrin Stjernfeldt-Jamme, and I'm the mayor of Malmö, but also the first vice president of ICLEI. Cities account for 70% of all greenhouse gas emissions. Still, less than 15% of all global funding goes to the local level. And we know that much of the work needs to be done, must and will be done by us at the local level. And therefore, our voices must be heard. Over the next 2 weeks, ELCA's Local Climate Action Summit and this pavilion will be an important platform and a megaphone to echo our voices. It will also be an important meeting point to share experiences and knowledge. Sustainable thinking has been part of the Swedish philosophy for quite a long time. Today, when we build new city districts in Malmö, we make sure that we have the infrastructure, the green infrastructure in place from the very beginning. When it comes to waste management, heating, cooling, energy, and mobility solutions. But the majority of our city, just like most cities, is already existing. We have areas that need to be refurbed. And we need to create energy efficient solutions within the existing city. That means that we need to make the green transformation also just and inclusive, so that people can afford their homes, even when we have made the investment that needs to be done. This is a struggle for mayors all over the globe. That is also why we launched the Malmö Commitment together with ICLEI for all local leaders who tackle the same issues. And I would like to urge you to join us now in that Malmö Commitment work. I hope that all of you will return home after this year's COP with the same strong feeling, inspiration, and motivation as I had after the COP21. It was something special, and really, we need that feeling now. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you very much, Katrin Jamme, Mayor of Malmö, Sweden, and ICLEI's first Vice President. May I now give the floor to Jemima Gordon-Duff, the Deputy Director of International Climate Change of the Government of Scotland and Pavilion co-host. Please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming today. It's wonderful to see so many people here at this event and that you found us. So that's excellent news, and I hope it means you'll come back again for some other events that are going on here as well. I'm really pleased to be here as a co-host with ICLEI and with UN Habitat. The Scottish Government has been partnering with ICLEI for the last 3 years since we hosted COP26 in Glasgow, which again, I hope many of you were at and enjoyed a warm, if slightly wet, Scottish welcome at that time, and are enjoying getting to know the venue here and finding your way around. So welcome, everyone. As some of my colleagues have said, I think really important that subnationals devolved government, cities, all the different terms, the non-party state actors, that we're all gathered here at COP, given the importance of our role. I noted your statistic on 70% of greenhouse gas emissions from cities, so we should swap statistics. We have ours as up to 80% of critical climate action is at subnational level. So there really cannot be progress at COP and for the long-term future unless subnationals, local governments, cities are involved. So that's why Scotland's here. We have a particular interest, as you might know, on loss and damage. We're fully committed to acting to address loss and damage. We were the first global north, and I note that because many of you will be involved in already paying for losses and damages being suffered by your communities. But we were the first global north country to commit funding to loss and damage at COP26. So 3 years ago, we have pledged that money. It is spent. It was 2 million. It was not a huge sum compared to the need. And I think much as the progress that we saw on loss and damage last night is huge progress and so significant, you know, there are still questions about how the fund is replenished, how that is going to meet needs, how it's going to reach communities as well, because what the Scottish Government has tried to do with our loss and damage funding is demonstrate and show practical lessons and take practical action to show how money can reach communities in a way that is around grants and not loans, that recognises the differentiated impacts of climate change on women and on youth in particular, and that the money is in addition, which is the important one, and tricky at this time of a debt crisis, and that the money is in addition to existing development funds. So that's something Scottish Government will continue to be pushing for. We've now committed 8 million to loss and damage. COP27, we made another commitment. We hope to make some more at this COP as well. But we are here to not just talk about loss and damage and not just talk about subnational, but also to talk about our progress to net zero and to learn from others. Because I think we need to keep challenging each other. COPs cannot just be about showcasing and leadership. It needs to be about challenging each other to do more and be better. And I think the fossil fuels is somewhere where we will see that debate going on. I hope we can play a part in emphasizing the just transition aspect that we see as so crucial to reaching net zero and ensuring that the process is fair and creates resilient societies. So I will finish there, and just to refer back to some of Mamuna's words at the beginning, I think the drive to collaborate is why we're all here. The need to challenge each other, to work together, and to act. Thank you.
Climate Change Government of Scotland. Thank you very much. I would like to ask our speakers now here to move to the audience, and I would like to call upon our next speakers. First of all, Mrs. Nina Hachigan, the US Special Representative for City and State Diplomacy. Please, madam. Or perhaps over there. Yeah. I would like to call upon Mr. Jader Filho, Minister of Cities of Brazil, please. Can you perhaps join the minister for translation? Can you help with 2 other chairs? Okay. Then I call upon Mr. Renato Casagrande, Governor of the state of Espírito Santo in Brazil and chair of Brazil Verde Consortium. Please take a seat, as well as a translator. And then finally, I would like to call upon Governor Koike of Tokyo Metropolitan Government, Japan. Please, madam. Yes, please. Thank you very much, honorable speakers, to join us here at this opening of the pavilion. We have been wishing and hoping that you could join us at this pavilion, in particularly because you all represent a particular development of importance to local and subnational action worldwide. In your countries, processes have changed over the year, and you have been part of that, and in particularly able and enable local and regional governments to step up domestically in your countries, and in doing so also internationally. So this panel now here is to talk a little bit about the multi-level action opportunities and possibilities and the potential. And I would like to invite Mrs. Nina Hatchigan, Ambassador and US Special Representative for City and State Diplomacy, to share with us, Nina, the process that has been undertaken within the United States of America to include, involve, and empower cities and states, in particular in your country. And I believe that you took up your job a year now. So perhaps it is also a moment for us to hear what your experience have been in this particular field. So Nina, welcome very much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the partners who put together this incredibly important pavilion. I am Nina Hatchigan, as you heard. I'm the first special representative for city and state diplomacy at the U.S. State Department. And so my team leads and coordinates the department's engagement with mayors and governors in the United States and all around the world. We elevate the voice of local leaders because they are closest to the people they serve, because they are the first responders, because local leaders and their communities are indispensable architects of innovation, because local leaders not only implement the decisions that are made at the national or international level, but they also inspire action at those levels. So I wanted
Nina,
to give you...
can you just speak a little bit closer to the mic?
Sure.
Better. Thank you.
There we go. I wanted to give you an example from my home state of California. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach together represent a vital engine of jobs, paychecks, supply chain stability, and economic growth for their local communities and really for our whole country. They are the gateways for shipping and goods coming from and to all places in the world. And their centrality as this commercial hub makes them a vital breeding ground for climate solutions. So the cities stepped up and created a clean truck program to encourage greener cargo transportation and also less pollution in surrounding communities. The city's efforts were in turn supported by the state of California through a major grants program for improving the port's sustainability. From there, the state level efforts were bolstered by support from the federal government. The Inflation Reduction Act provides the Environmental Protection Agency with billions of dollars for its Clean Trucks program. California's experiences have inspired an act before Congress called the Clean Shipping Act. And meanwhile, the United States and Norway have announced a challenge last year to push more change globally in green shipping. And the ports, back to the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, they are also amplifying their efforts by collaborating with other major ports in Asia, including Nagoya, on decarbonization and on green shipping corridors. So the lesson here is unmistakable. Local efforts can create a domino effect that can lead to positive change at a global scale. The best outcomes of multi-level action require communication and support, but the beauty of multi-level action is that when one level is not living up to its promise, the other levels can elevate their climate ambition and keep us zeroed in on our collective goals. Local action in years past in the United States didn't just steady the ship. It cultivated a new era of problem-solving, innovation, and stewardship. And now the US government is engaging in unprecedented support for the energy transition. So President Biden signed into law the IRA about a year ago, and that's already produced some 170,000 clean jobs. We've never seen this level of attention and investment in fighting the climate crisis. So this is a federal program, but it's an example of multi-level action because much of the funding will flow to cities and states in the United States. So my sincere hope is that we maintain this multi-level action. We keep collaborating and coordinating and cooperating and learning from each other and evolving together. After all, that's why we're here. It's the only way we're going to be able to generate the change that we need to keep 1.5 degrees within reach. So I wish you a COP filled with all of the connections and communications you need to have to keep our action going. And I know that this space will be sure to help. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Hatchigan, for sharing with us the process and progress that is being undertaken in the United States and under your leadership as well. So thank you so much. And we are very proud to hear the good work that is being undertaken by the federal government of the United States. Thank you so much. I would now like to give the floor to Madame Yuriko Koike, the governor of Tokyo Metropolitan Government in Japan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us at this corner. And President Frank Gurney, thank you very much for inviting me, and Secretary General Van Begin and all speakers and everyone involved with ICLEI. I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity today. The theme of COP28 is Unite, Act, and Deliver. So the role of cities on the front lines of the climate crisis is becoming increasingly important. To fulfill its responsibility as one of the world's largest cities, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, TMG, is pursuing the 1.5 degree target and accelerating its actions to realize a 2030 carbon halving carbon emissions by 2030, and a 2050 a zero emission Tokyo. Renewable energy is an important key to achieving zero emissions in light of being home to a dense concentration of buildings. TMG will launch a program in April 2025. Thank you for automatic support. In April 2025 to require the installation of solar power generation equipment on the roofs of the new houses and other buildings. And we will triple the quantity of renewable energy equipment in Tokyo by 2030 through such efforts. Yes. And perovskite. Can you hold it? Thank you. Perovskite solar cells, which are now shown in front of you, are expected to be used for solar panel power generation in the next generation. And since they are thin, yes, and light, okay, yes, and flexible, yes. You get a new job. And they can be installed in places once not suitable for the installation. Also, the world's first private project, once again, is underway to install mega solar grade perovskite solar cells on the walls of a high-rise building in central Tokyo. So as you can see in this siege, oh, it disappeared. Tokyo will take advantage of features of perovskite solar cells to evolve into a futuristic city where every structure, buildings, houses, and even mobility will generate electricity. And it is also important to strengthen preparations for storms, floods, and other disasters caused by climate change. And TMG will realize a resilient and sustainable city by strengthening physical aspects, such as the development of regulating reservoirs, as well as using digital technologies, for example, water level prediction through AI. And we are also promoting measures against heat, including heat blocking pavements. And take the SUS from sustainability and high tech, HI, two together become coincidentally sushi. So, and Sushi Tech, we call it Sushi Tech Tokyo. And with this, our city is inviting many startups, internal and also domestic and international, to participate the Sushi Tech Tokyo, so that we can share the wisdom and high technology to solve those social problems that cities are facing. So welcome to Tokyo anytime, and also especially to the Sushi Tech Tokyo will be held next April and May in Bay Area, Tokyo. And thank you very much for introducing our technology. Thank you. And new regulation.
Thank you very much, Governor Koike, for sharing with us the progresses that is being undertaken in Tokyo. And Nina, thank you also for the support to the governor. Let me now move to Brazil, and in particular to Mr. Jader Filho, who is the Minister of Cities in Brazil, also a new position and function, and we are delighted not only to hear about your appointment, Minister, but also to hear about the progress that is being undertaken. Minister, the floor is yours. And I think you will be helped by your interpreter.
Yes. So, good afternoon, everybody. So I will speak in Portuguese and my translator to speak in English. First of all, I'm glad to thank you, Mr. Casagrande, our governor from Espírito Santo. It's a great state in Brazil. And all the speakers, Dino, everybody. Thank you to Clay. Eu quero iniciar falando.
I would like to start speaking.
O Brasil voltou.
Brazil is coming back.
Desde que o presidente Lula
Since President Lula
retornou à presidência da República,
returned to the President of the Republic,
diversos programas sociais foram retomados no Brasil.
multiple social programs we returned in Brazil.
E a preocupação com a questão climática é um dos principais pontos do novo governo do presidente Lula.
And the worries about the climate social environment and attitudes is the focal points of the new government.
E dentro disso que o Brasil se propõe,
and inside of this that Brazil are proposing,
o Brasil tem feito diversas ações.
We are making a lot of actions.
No sentido de que isso, além, obviamente, de uma ideia, de uma convicção que todos nós temos no governo federal,
and despite of the conviction and the idea that we all have in the federal government,
nós precisamos partir para ações práticas.
We need to take action.
E aí diversas frentes têm sido estabelecidas pelo governo brasileiro.
And then multiple fronts we are establishing the Brazilian government.
Desde nós termos como meta o desmatamento zero no Brasil.
Since we have the target of killing the way that people kill the forest,
até a gente cuidar das cidades.
Deforestation, and also take care of the cities.
E esse é o ponto central da minha fala hoje aqui com
And
vocês.
this today is the center, the focus point of my speaking to you,
Para o governo do presidente Lula,
to the government of President Lula.
o retorno do Ministério das Cidades
The return of the Ministry of Cities
é fundamentalmente porque, se eu pegar especialmente
is basically because if I take especially
a Amazônia,
Amazon region,
lá vivem cerca de mais de 29 milhões de
we
brasileiros.
have 29 million people living in that area.
E esses brasileiros
And
não
this-
vivem
And this kind of people, they are not living
embaixo da copa das árvores.
under the trees.
Esses brasileiros vivem nas cidades.
They live in cities.
E essas pessoas,
And these people,
elas querem ter um bom emprego,
they want to have a good job,
querem ter uma infraestrutura nas suas cidades de qualidade,
quality infrastructure in the cities,
querem ter saúde, educação,
healthy education,
querem ter uma boa vida.
and they want to have a good life.
Então, se nós de fato
So if in fact
queremos combater o desmatamento, se a gente quer cuidar do meio
we want to
ambiente,
take care of the environment,
a gente primeiro precisa pensar nas
we
pessoas.
have to think about people first.
E essas pessoas,
And-
eu repito, elas vivem nas
And
cidades.
I repeat, these people, they doesn't live in the forest, they live in the cities.
E aí eu vou dar um exemplo, eu que venho da Amazônia,
And I'll give you an example. I come from Amazon region.
as pessoas, muitas delas,
Many people,
não têm emprego.
they have no job,
E elas são presas fáceis, elas são fáceis de que bandidos
and they are easy prey to bad people
possam chegar e dar dinheiro a elas
to give them money
para que elas façam uma queimada,
to be engaged in some criminal activity in the forest, like burning fire,
ou que elas cortem uma árvore secular.
or to take down trees.
Então, se nós não cuidarmos dessas
So
pessoas,
if we are not taking care of people with good and health job,
e aqui o governo brasileiro não está fugindo à sua responsabilidade,
and saying that we are not escaping from our responsibility of the burning fires and the deforestation,
de que a gente tem que tratar da questão do comando e controle, quer dizer, punir as pessoas que fazem os crimes,
that we have to take action and punish the people that are committing crimes in the forest.
só que no entender do governo brasileiro,
In our
fazer só
understanding,
isso não vai funcionar.
To do only that is not working,
Porque você vai prender uma pessoa hoje, amanhã é outra pessoa que vai fazer a mesma
because you're
coisa.
putting someone in jail today and tomorrow another people is doing the same crime.
Então nós precisamos de fato ir para a raiz do
So we
problema,
have to be working in the root of the problem,
que é a gente dar oportunidades a essas famílias, a essas
to
pessoas.
give opportunity to the families.
Então, nós temos feito ações como, por exemplo, o retorno do Minha Casa Minha Vida.
So we are making action, for example, like the program Return My House, My Life.
Que é o nosso programa habitacional, que é um dos programas habitacionais maiores do mundo nesse momento.
That is one of the biggest housing programs of the world.
Só nesse momento nós estamos subsidiando para famílias de baixa renda
Only in this moment we are financing and subsidizing programs to low rent, low budget families.
Eu estou falando especificamente em famílias, só no ano de 2023,
Only in 2023,
são cerca de 650 mil novas habitações só
600,
em 2023.
only in 2023, 650,000 new houses
Que nós estamos contratando para que famílias possam morar com qualidade.
that people can live with quality.
Porque boa parte do foco dessas famílias que vão morar nessas casas,
Because most of the people that are receiving this kind of support,
elas são pessoas que, por exemplo, vão evitar de morar em áreas como, por exemplo, em costas, como, por exemplo, em áreas que elas vão chegar e degradar áreas, tirando a floresta.
it's people that usually they are going to live in areas that are climate and forest and that are focus of the problem. So we are taking people from the focus of the problem and give them houses.
Para que a gente possa tratar de fato, verdadeiramente, do
So-
problema central.
So we are really focusing and treat what really is the problem, the center problem.
Agora, nós precisamos entender, e aqui as grandes economias do mundo,
So we need to understand the high economies of the world,
que nós precisamos mostrar para as pessoas que vale mais a pena ter a floresta em pé
that we need to show people that's worth to have the trees up
do que a floresta deitada, do que a
Then-
floresta morta.
than the tree down.
Então, o Fundo do Clima precisa financiar essas famílias para que não só elas entendam isso,
So climate funding needs to understand that they need to support us in supporting these families so they can understand that.
para que a Floresta Impact também possa remunerar essas famílias.
So the first up can also give money back to this kind of family.
Como também nós precisamos que o fundo possa financiar também as infraestruturas nas nossas cidades.
So we can also need the funding to fund the infrastructure in our cities,
Para que as pessoas consigam se enxergar nesse projeto que é um projeto que é urgente,
so people can see themselves in this kind of project that's urgent project,
para que elas se sintam pertencentes a esse
so
projeto,
they can feel that they belong to the project,
e não que é uma coisa distante delas.
and not that is something distant and away from their
Mas para isso,
but
nós
for that,
precisamos dar a essas famílias, a essas pessoas,
we need to give them
alternativas.
alternatives.
E para isso, o governo brasileiro está fazendo a sua
And
parte.
the Brazilian government is doing their part,
Quando nós estamos retornando diversos programas sociais,
returning several social programs
seja na área da saúde, seja na área da educação,
in healthy education,
seja na área da cultura, ou seja na área do meio ambiente.
culture, or environment.
Só para vocês terem uma ideia,
Only to give you an idea,
nos primeiros meses do governo do presidente Lula,
in the first months of Lula's government,
a redução do desmatamento foi acima de 40%.
the reduction of deforestation was over 40%.
Então, são números reais de ações práticas,
There are real numbers of practical actions,
mas que nós não acreditamos
and we don't believe
que isso seja de fato sustentável
that this is actually sustainable
sem a gente trazer a discussão das cidades para o centro do problema.
without we bring the discussion about the cities to the focus of the problem.
Porque se nós não trouxermos a discussão das cidades, nós não traremos as pessoas junto com essa
If
discussão.
we are not bringing the cities to the discussion, we are not bringing the people.
Então, nós todos juntos,
So
o
we all
governo
together,
brasileiro e todos nós que estamos com a preocupação com o meio ambiente,
so all the stakeholders, the partners, and the Brazilian government that are actually worried about the environment,
precisamos encontrar alternativas para que nós vamos defender o meio ambiente, defender esta ideia que é uma ideia que é a sobrevivência de todos nós,
we need to find alternatives to defend the environment
mas nós precisamos cuidar das pessoas.
and take care of people.
Só assim a gente vai encontrar uma solução definitiva para esse problema.
That's how we find a definitive solution to the problem.
Muito obrigado a todos vocês.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister Filho, Minister of Cities in Brazil. Thank you very much for your encouraging messages and the way forward that you are taking in Brazil. Thank you. I would now like to give the floor to also Brazil, to Mr. Renato Casagrande, Governor of the state of Espírito Santo in Brazil and also the chair of Brazil Verde Consortium. The floor is yours, Governor.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you.
Quero cumprimentar a governadora de Tóquio, a representante dos Estados Unidos, ministro Jader, senhoras e
All the
senhores.
authorities, ladies and gentlemen.
Alegria estar aqui com vocês.
It's a joy for me to be here with you.
O Brasil tem uma grande oportunidade de continuar dando uma grande contribuição ao planeta.
Brazil has now a big opportunity to keep providing to the country, to the
Nós-
world.
Nós já somos um grande produtor de alimentos
We are a big producer of food,
e podemos ser um grande exportador de energia.
and also we can now export energy as well.
A necessidade de preservar o planeta coloca também a oportunidade de aproveitarmos o momento de transição energética.
The need to preserve the planet give us the opportunity to find new engagement in the energetical solutions.
Nós, por isso, que nos juntamos
That's the reason we get together
ao governo do presidente Lula
to the government of President Lula,
e organizamos o consórcio dos governadores pelo clima.
and we organize the cooperative of the governors for the climate.
Na época do presidente Bolsonaro,
During Bolsonaro's president time,
foi necessário organizar o consórcio
it was necessary to organize this cooperation
para levar a voz do Brasil
This-
aos fóruns internacionais.
to give the voice of Brazil to the international speakers.
Neste momento, a nossa voz aqui se soma à voz do governo brasileiro,
And in this time, our voice of the consortium gets together of the new Brazilian government
a responsabilidade e os compromissos assumidos na COP de Paris,
and the responsibility and the commitment that we assumed in Paris COP
precisam também ser trabalhadas pelos governos subnacionais.
we also need to work that in the sub-levels in our government.
Por isso, a nossa ação como coordenador do consórcio, como presidente do consórcio, é fazer com que cada estado tenha seu programa de mudanças climáticas.
That's the reason our action as the coordinator of this consortium of governance is to make sure that every state will do what they have to do to fulfill the responsibilities.
O consórcio já alcança a grande parte dos estados do Brasil.
The consortium is already in most of the states of Brazil.
E a nossa orientação e o nosso apoio é para que neste programa de mudança climática nós tenhamos um plano de mitigação e um plano de adaptação.
So our support and our guidance is to have a plan of mitigation and a plan of adaptation, two separate plans.
Se o Brasil tem que alcançar neutralidade de carbono em 2050, cabe a cada estado do Brasil dar a sua contribuição.
If we have to fulfill until 2050 the zero carbon issue, so we have every state needs to work together.
Se o Brasil tem desmatamento ilegal, também é de responsabilidade dos governos subnacionais dar sua contribuição na fiscalização.
If we have deforestation, it's responsibility for each government to give them their own responsibility and work on that.
Se o Brasil tem que incentivar a energia renovável, também cabe aos estados, aos entes subnacionais.
It's also for the governors to do support to new energy power plants.
Por isso que nós estamos somando esses esforços.
That's the reason we are summarizing these efforts.
E nós estamos numa conferência onde a ação deve ser o centro da nossa atenção.
And now the action needs to be the focus point of our attention.
É menos discurso e mais trabalho.
Less speech and more work.
Porque nós não temos mais condições de debater, e a cada ano a gente vê as emissões aumentando e a temperatura aumentando.
Every year we see temperatures high, carbon issues high, and we are debating.
É lógico que mudança climática é um tema que está afeta a todas as pessoas e a todos os entes públicos e privados, mas é preciso que todos atuem de forma muito firme.
Of course, that's something that are in every area and every level of government, but it needs to have hard actions around that.
E as mudanças climáticas atingem especialmente as pessoas mais vulneráveis.
And climate changes actually reach the most vulnerable people at all.
O consórcio dos governadores pelo clima está trabalhando firmemente e nós temos hoje diversos estados do Brasil já elaborando seus programas de mudança climática e já com compromisso de neutralidade de carbono.
The consortium of governors, we are working firmly and hard in the plans of mitigation and adaptation to reduce the carbon issue until 2050.
O ICLEI tem sido colaborador e parceiro importante para o nosso trabalho.
ICLEI is really a collaborator and a partner very important to our work.
Neste momento, então, nesta COP aqui em Dubai,
Here
o que nós
in Dubai,
desejamos
we wish
é que a gente juntos possa mudar a realidade do planeta Terra.
We wish here that Dubai could be a start to change really the reality in the whole world.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Governor Casagrande from the state of Espírito Santo in Brazil. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to ask our leaders of this pavilion, the First Minister of Scotland and the ICLEI President, Frank County, to come to the front to introduce our dignitary function and person in a moment, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure as the First Minister of Scotland to join with our friends in Ilkley in hosting this pavilion at COP28. I'm delighted to be here on behalf of Scotland. As you can see, I have brought the Scottish weather with me to Dubai. I don't know why you're laughing, but you're most welcome for that. Yesterday was the day of our patron saint, St. Andrew, and we celebrated here in Dubai our Scottish National Day. And St. Andrew, he's also a saint who's revered in Russia and Ukraine. He began his ministry and his preaching in the countries and lands that we call Israel and Palestine. And he preached peace. He preached compassion. He preached justice. And that word for me is one of the most noble words in our English language. Because as humans, we are often in danger of overcomplicating very simple situations. And for me, when it comes to the issue of tackling the climate crisis, the nature crisis, it is fundamentally an issue of justice. And that is why at COP26 that we held in my home city of Glasgow, I was very proud that Scotland became the first country in the global north to commit funding to loss and damage. And a couple of years on, not only have we committed more funding, we've mobilized it, allocated it, and managed to get some of it out of the door. And I'm delighted that we had an agreement at COP28 in relation to loss and damage yesterday. And let's not allow perfect to be the enemy of the good, because there, of course, is real concern from colleagues in the Global South around some of what has been proposed, but progress is absolutely important. So this issue is an issue of justice. Justice for our children, but justice for our friends in the Global South. And why do I say justice? Because, of course, they have contributed the least to the impacts, at least to the climate crisis, but are suffering greatly as a result of it. Scotland is a country that benefited from industrialization for decades. It's important that we and other countries in the global north make sure that we are, in a just manner, of course, ensure that we repair that damage that we have done. I will end on saying that we come here not just to remind our friends in the global north about our obligations in relation to justice, but also to and demonstrate ambition. Scotland has been for many decades the oil and gas capital of Europe. Well, we are going to just transition with pace, accelerate that pace to phase out, of course, fossil fuel and move towards a renewable, clean transition to net zero. And I want Scotland to go from being the oil and gas capital of Europe to being the net zero capital, not just of Europe, but the net zero capital of the world. Let me end by saying that the issues we are discussing in COP28 today are not new issues. And it is of great pleasure for me to welcome Al Gore, who has been, of course, telling an inconvenient truth for many, many decades. And I wish him well as one of the most powerful voices in the world, demanding climate justice and demanding climate action. I had the pleasure of meeting very briefly Al Gore at the World Climate Action Summit. And he was telling me about his own roots in Scotland, as many of you have done in the 24, 48 hours that I've been here. And it reminded me of that wonderful saying that there are two types of people in the world, Scots and those who want to be Scots. And regardless of whether you're a Scot or somebody who wants to be a Scot, you are most welcome at this pavilion. And let's make sure we are doing right by our friends in the global south and acting with justice. Thank you so much.
It's good to see so many people here today. I'm Frank County. I'm the mayor of Des Moines, Iowa, and also global president of ICLEI. And I'm proud to have done that for now over 3 years, and look forward to continuing on into Sao Paulo and in Brazil. So we're excited about doing that. I stand here before you as a mayor and a person that is worried about climate for a number of years. I've been accused of being a tree hugger and all kinds of other things. And I am actually proud to be that. And on top of that, I want you to know that I too am a Scot. Yeah. Although my peeps were from Perthshire. So, any rate, about 17 years ago, I met this young man who was talking about an inconvenient truth. And he introduced us all to some concepts and really underlined the risks that we all face, not only today, but future and future generations. And here we are today, all coming together to look at multi-level actions that need to be taken and work together to have success so that our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren can have the opportunity and the success that we have shared. Now, I would like now to bring up this young man, Al Gore, former president of the United States, and I will also say that I remember when I first met him, he sort of introduced and with a smile on his face, and quite frankly, I was so supportive of him as formerly known as the next president of the United States.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Again, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the honor of speaking here at the kickoff of your activities. And Frank, thank you for the very kind introduction. And we sat together right next to each other during the opening ceremony that just concluded. And I won't tell you all the comments we were kibitzing back and forth on, but we heard some great speeches, by the way, and the Secretary General and Lula, King Charles, etc. Anyway, I want to thank ICLEI and thank you very much. We had a good time in Glasgow 2 years ago, and last year in Sharm el-Sheikh, and this is the kickoff of your work at COP28, and I'm deeply honored, as I've said, but I want you to know I really feel that way, that you have invited me to be among so many inspiring progress at the local level. The leaders seem to be in advance of so many local communities are located. I need to get educated on why that is, but part of it is because you're closer to the people, and the people are now feeling this, and they're demanding action. Not all of them yet, but it's hard to find people who are still in doubt about the reality of the climate crisis. Even people that don't want to use the phrase climate crisis or global warming or climate change, they're finding their own vocabulary to express their concern that something is going on, and it's pretty obvious that we need to do something about it. And the local leaders are providing the kind of inspirational leadership that is greatly needed. Frank and I were in the opening ceremony, as I said, and I mentioned some of the speeches that I felt were inspiring to me, but I was still struck overall by the gulf that remains between the aspirational words coming from so many national leaders, and the action, the urgent action that we collectively have yet to take in order to solve this crisis. This year will be the hottest ever recorded. You all know that. We've got, here it is, December 1st, and we've got a whole month left to go, but the signs are saying the numbers are so overwhelming that no matter what happens in the month of December, it's going to be the hottest year ever measured with instruments by a good stretch. And we had a stretch earlier this year that the scientists say were the 3 hottest days in at least 125,000 years. You know, we use these numbers, and I've used them for a long time, reaching for ways to communicate the reality of this that will connect with people. And Mother Nature's doing a better job than any of us. And of course, it's a shame that we've had to hold off on action for political timidity reasons for so long that Mother Nature is coming in to say, okay, get moving on this. But people are getting the message. And of course, we've seen these climate-related disasters unfolding all over the world. You know, 40 years ago, I would give speeches and slideshows, and I used to use a Kodak projector with the, you know, if the slides ever fell out, you'd put them back in examples of the different aspects of the climate crisis that went back. Oh, this happened here 10 years ago. This was 8 years ago. This was 20 years ago. Now say this was yesterday. And on the other side of the world, this was the day before yesterday. And that's the way it's been going. And yet we are not grappling with it. We should. But local leaders, so many local leaders are part of a group that has stepped into the breach and is taking action where others should have long since. And, you know, I just did 3 weeks ago, I finished a 4-day training of 1,200 new climate activists in West Africa. And I was showing examples of how the infrastructure in the cities in West Africa is not capable of handling these big downpours, you know? And then I caught myself when I was going over it. I said, now, wait a minute. This is not just because these African cities have not been built correctly. Let me show you some videos from New York City and Chicago and so forth. It's happening all over the world. The infrastructure was designed for a world that we have now been moving out of, in the sense that we're creating these conditions where the infrastructure can't handle it anymore. And local leaders have explaining why that is the case. And maybe that's one of the reasons, one of the answers for the question I posed at the beginning, why local leaders are so far ahead of many others. But there's no question that you are among the most dedicated and determined leaders who are taking action into your own hands. So I just want to say on behalf of a lot of people who would say it if they were here standing to speak to you, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for the moral courage that you're taking. I read a quote yesterday from, we all know what to do. We just don't know how to get elected after we. Agency, the IPCC, and all who've taken the time to study this issue tell us we have everything we need right now to cut emissions in half by 2030. We're running out of time to meet that, but but we can still. And we have a clear line of sight to all of the technologies we need to get to net zero by 2050. And transitioning to renewable energy makes our communities cleaner, makes our people healthier, creates 3 times as many jobs for each dollar invested compared to the dirty fossil fuel investments that many people are still making. And, you know, we're still seeing around the world how taxpayers are being forced to subsidize the destruction of humanity's future. It's crazy. You know, they talk about this loss and damage fund, and I'm all for that. But the commitments that were announced with great fanfare yesterday amount to 32 minutes of the annual fossil fuel subsidies that the taxpayers are providing. You know, if you just limit it to the explicit subsidies, it goes up to 2 hours and 50 minutes worth of the money we're spending to subsidize fossil fuels. So we need to stop that. Advances in renewable energy, such as solar and wind, and all the new advances in battery technology and sustainability, regenerative agriculture, and all the rest, they're here. We know what to do. And to make meaningful progress in the face of this crisis, every level of government needs to be focused intently on this and get moving on it. And make no mistake, all levels of government need to do more. And that includes standing up to the influence of the fossil fuel industry. Let's just say it plainly. The climate crisis is mainly a fossil fuel crisis. 80% of the cause of all this is from burning fossil fuels. And now that we have something that's better to substitute for it, we have to get over the inertia. But every jurisdiction in the world where solutions are proposed that involve reducing the demand for fossil fuels, the fossil fuel companies are in there with their lobbyists and their fixers and their revolving door colleagues, and they fight tooth and nail to stop anything that would reduce consumption by a single barrel of oil, a single MCF of gas, or a single ton of coal. Now, representative democracy and self-governance cannot succeed if we allow a small, even if wealthy, special interest to just twist everything around their little fingers and expect that when they say jump, elected officials say, yes, sir, how high you want me to jump this time? And that's what's been going on. You know that. But local leaders, maybe again because you're closer to your constituents, can resist that. You know, I saw this. My hometown is Nashville, Tennessee. I have a farm outside of Nashville. Frank and I were talking about farming. We had a proposal in Nashville to get more mass transit and to reduce the traffic problem and the consumption of fossil fuel for the cars and trucks. Well, the oil industry came in under the radar. They spent 4 times as much money lobbying against this proposal as the public-minded activists who proposed it were able to muster. And so they got their way with raw financial power. And so much is at stake. We can no longer allow the fossil fuel industry to deceive the public into continuing our unhealthy addiction to fossil fuels. And now it's time to show that instead of relying on the smoke and mirrors from the oil and gas industry, we can embrace the sustainable solutions of the future. And I know that many of you in this gathering have faced similar opposition when you've tried to push progress. I know my friend Jay Inslee, the governor of Washington, I was with him not long ago, where they had a big proposal in the state of Washington. Some of the oil and gas companies who had publicly proclaimed their devotion to the renewable energy transition, they came in and, just like I said, they fought tooth and nail and defeated it because they have the money and the power and people who are connected to them that will do what they say. And so from Des Moines, Iowa, to Malmo, Sweden, to Glasgow, Scotland, you have committed yourselves to carbon-free electricity, green manufacturing, regenerative agriculture, and you're harnessing opportunities to bring the new clean energy projects to your regions and your cities and building and strengthening the economies of the future to benefit your people. So now is the time to enhance collaboration across all governing bodies at each of the levels of government. We really are at a crucial moment, and it's clear that all of us here today care about the future of this planet, future of the communities in which we live, and the people with which we share our lives. I'm deeply inspired by the collective efforts of local communities, by mayors and elected leaders and officials, and the residents that support you in your leadership. Let's continue our critical and urgent work together. Don't ever doubt that we can do this. You know, in all of the great morally based movements of the past, whether it's suffrage for women, the right of women to vote, whether it was the civil rights movement in my country, the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, all of the others, there were times when those who were out in front fighting felt a vulnerability to despair because it was so hard and the opposition was so fierce. But you know, all those movements had one thing in common, and that is when the distractions and the underbrush was cleared away and the central issue was revealed as a choice between what is right and what is wrong. At that moment, at a deep level, the outcome became foreordained, because that's who we are as human beings if we focus on that central choice. And that is true of the climate movement as well. The underbrush has been cleared away. People are seeing it very clearly now, and more are saying we're going to choose to do the right thing. And if you ever doubt that we as human beings have the political will to do that, just remember, political will is itself a renewable resource. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
May I invite our speakers to join, Mr. President?
Yeah, can we have our speakers come up, and we're going to do a quick picture with, yeah, right here.